Okay, here we go. Hello, everyone. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever and whenever you're listening to this. Welcome. This is the 37th of hopefully many episodes of Bardadvice, a D&D / TTRPG / life podcast where I, Charles, Chaz, Yazik, the DM, the Bard, however you may know me, do my best to answer all of those questions. Hope that everybody is doing well. This is Friday evening for us here. Hope everybody's had a good week. We are going to get right into things. At the top of the show, we like to remind everyone of the email. Please send all of your questions, concerns, queries, complaints, compliments, criticisms to bardadvice@gmail.com. It also looks like bardadvice, if that helps you remember. If you would like to get any merch, you can do so at manshorts.com. And if you want to contribute to anything that I'm doing musically, you can do so directly via Venmo, PayPal, or Cash App, all of which are Yazik, Y-A-H. Oh, wow. Looks like we had a disconnect there. I don't know. I hope that that doesn't continue happening. Seems that it's not getting any data, so hopefully we can keep moving forward. So also would like to, at the top of the pod, thank all of the patrons, members, super chatters. Would like to remind everyone to please like, comment, share, subscribe, rate the podcast on your respective platforms. And let's move on to Art Corner this week. So this week I did a guest spot on a podcast that I'd like to talk about and promote. I'm not sure when my episode will be coming out. Probably not for a couple of weeks, but that's fine because this guy's got a good backlog on his podcast episodes that you can go catch up on. So the name of the podcast is How Not to DM, hosted by a gentleman named Derek. He's spoken to, over the course of his podcast, several people in the D&D creator space, specifically DMs, notably Will from D&D Shorts, as well as Robert Hartley from Viva La Dirt League, and as of most recently, me. So go check that out. I've put links in the description of this YouTube video for the How Not to DM podcast. It was fun. I had a really fun time doing it, and I will definitely let everybody here know when that episode is out, but go check that out in the meantime. And that's what we've got for Art Corner. So before we get into any real questions, I would like to shine a little light on the Peppercorn family. So last week during Chat, we briefly spoke about Studebaker Peppercorn, and he comes up from time to time. Studebaker Peppercorn is a character that I created for the Airships of Nuada campaign that's on the channel. He's a bard warlock, but he's one of 11. So he has 10 siblings, all of which have their own names and respective professions, some of which already exist in other worlds. So I thought that I would share them with the pod so that if anybody out there wants to make one of these peppercorns into your world, then you can do so. They are all turtles. As you can see there on the right, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see on the video, I made that in Hero Forge, the Studebaker Peppercorn. And he's got his banjo there and the shoe, as he's a cobbler and comes from a family of cobblers. And over on the left, you have the rest of the Peppercorn family. Now, the ones that are in blue are currently in use in a world existing somewhere. The others are not. So starting from the oldest at the top, we have Thunderbird, who is a sorcerer, Daisy, who is a wizard, Spitfire, the barbarian, Mustang is a bard sorcerer, Lily is a bard, Periwinkle is a cleric bard, or a clart, Tornado is a fighter, Cutlass is a rogue, Gremlin is a druid, Petunia is an artificer bard, or a bardificer, and Studebaker is a bard warlock, and that's what they are. So if anybody wants to make any of the open ones in their world, Thunderbird, Daisy, Lily, Tornado, Cutlass, Gremlin, or Petunia, you go right on ahead and do that. I think that's really funny. Spoiler, Chaz, Tantor is still alive. To all turtles, Tantor Mantar lives. They all live. They always all live. All right, so let's get into some questions. We've got a couple this week. We've got a couple questions. We've got to follow up. And then we've also got something else that's rather important that we'll talk about later. But for now, the first question this week is from Gavin. And Gavin asks, "Hey Charles, thanks for all you do, and I hope you're faring well during the hurricane. Yep, I'm writing in because my roommate and I have been discussing setting up a kind of West March style campaign. But neither of us have ever done it. Any tips if you or anyone in chat has run one before? Keep up the bard work." Oh, I see what you did there. Thank you, Gavin, for the question. West March. So let's start for chat. Let's start with chat there. Anybody in chat? West March's experience? I'll be honest, I don't have much. And by much, I mean any. I've not ever done it. And I'm aware of what it is. First, let's talk about what it is. So for anyone that doesn't know, a West March's campaign was essentially this DM set this up as an idea to kind of combat the inevitable scheduling issue as well as kind of the boredom that can come sometimes with getting used to a set weekly game that you're showing up to. So sometimes in those kind of, sometimes a couple of months in, not always, to a campaign, particularly if it's homebrew, it can get to a lull almost where the players are just kind of showing up expecting that you as the DM have something ready to go. So with the West March campaign, the idea is that the onus of what the story is going to be is on the players. So you establish this town, and on the edge of which West is kind of untamed civilization, and it's very dangerous and scary, and there's lots of dungeons and stuff to do out there. But the players essentially decide what they want to do first. They communicate with themselves to schedule a time to get together with the DM, and then they kind of play that out. So I don't have any experience with playing them, but I think it's a cool idea. I watched actually a video that Matthew Colville made about it, and which is a good video and a succinct video explaining what it is, and he talked about how it can be good for he mentioned rather that when OD&D came out, evidently it's denoted as from 5 to 50 players. Because I guess that's kind of how Gygax always imagined that it would be played, on kind of a rotation basis. This is what's going on, I think, what we're going to see here in the future of Baldur's Gate 3, which I'm excited about, because at the moment you can only have 4 players in your party, and then once they're in your party, they're in your party. But I saw that they're talking about adding a wardrobe type feature where you can cycle people out. That's how it should be. So the short answer is I don't have any experience playing with it, but I would first recommend highly Matthew Colville's video on it and what it is and how it works and what his opinions on it are. And then beyond that, I would just check forums like Reddit. Patrolling the Pale makes me wish for nuclear summer. Huh. River says, I don't have any experience with that style of game, but it sounds like it's a blast. Yeah, definitely. And, you don't have to do it I think the cool thing about it is you can make it your own, in the sense of it doesn't have to just be a town where you go west. You could make it whatever you wanted. You could make it a space station. You could make it a space station would be way cool. Or like a train station from whence all adventures begin. Just kind of a hub. That would make it really cool with being interchangeable. And in fact, that's the only way that would work. But my tip to you would be to just research it to the best of your ability as to how it works, and then check out your friendly local gaming store. Check out Reddit. I'm sure that there's posts about it. People that are probably playing games online that you could join if you wanted to. Or you could make it a little blue police box that can travel time and space. Yeah, no doubt. Just give it enough legs, make it the Starship Enterprise. As long as you have So, enough story. Oh man, I just thought of Firefly and got depressed. Because every time I think of that show, it's just like, ugh, we could have had 12 seasons of that. Wouldn't have gotten sick of it. Just the legs that show had. I'd run mine similar to Dark Souls. The party wakes up in jail and escapes and explores a dying world and tries to figure out what's going on. Yeah, that's pretty cool. And that's really how Baldur's Gate 3 works, right? As, you have your little intro to the game and then you have your character that's kind of put into it. That's essentially the idea. It's less of, I guess, a structured, scheduled game where it's like we're showing up weekly, and it's more of like a foundation for which anything could be plugged into. Kind of like the D&D editions on the channel, really. Like you can kind of put any theme onto them and how they would connect with the stuff. Oh, and spoiler alert, on the podcast that I did with Derek from How Not to DM, we did have a cool rapid fire thing where he proposed ideas for additions, and then I kind of gave a descriptive as to what would go down with each of the characters and how they would react in those scenarios. So that was fun. But yeah, Gavin, I hope that you found an answer in there somewhere from somebody. Maybe use a yawning portal as a starting point. That would put a secret legendary lost portal in every world everywhere that leads to the realm space station. Yeah, that's true too. You just do it with portals. Easy peasy. No problemo. So thank you for the question, Gavin. Moving right along. Did BG3 just use Skyrim as a base? Players get together and decide what day and time to go after something. Yeah, I think that that's the most critical component of it all. It's not a scenario where the DM is kind of in charge as much as they're just kind of there to facilitate, which when you think about it, it makes sense as to that being the original way to play it, right? It's everybody kind of has the same starting point and you just kind of plug your character in, and more importantly, you and the other players have coordinated for what to do. So at that point, the DM is quite literally just facilitating what you want to do instead of maybe the other way around. Sometimes it can feel like for DMs when it's just, the players are kind of showing up and you're performing for them as opposed to facilitating what their performance is. If that makes any sense. I saw a meme today that said, when I say, does that make sense? I'm not saying it because I think you're stupid. I'm saying it because I'm genuinely asking if what I said makes sense. Because a lot of time I just say words and who knows what comes out. You love Skyrim, but it's definitely started to show its age. Oh yeah, hey, didn't Starfield come out this week? Like yesterday? I've heard that it's not. Well, I've heard mixed things. Some people said that it was buggy. I've seen other people say they're amazed at how minimal bugs are. As long as it's not like, what was that real bad launch they had years ago for that other one, No Man's Sky? Hadn't that been corrected? I've heard Cyberpunk's been corrected too. Timeline run at the same time, so the DM must keep records. Yeah, so that's the other cool thing too about the West Marches campaign, is that whatever somebody does in that world, it just kind of lives in that world as history. So if you were to go into that world, for example, and come across something that a party had come across 2 weeks ago, a different party of players that you weren't even in there with, that lore would build. So that's another cool thing I think about the West Marches campaign. It looks good, but Bethesda's going to have issues with it due to the creation engine. You can create your own ships in Starfield. Oh, man, don't tell me that stuff, Pirate. I just am getting absorbed into Baldur's Gate 3. I'm not trying to spend money and time on Starfield, although it's totally right up my alley because I am a fan of Bethesda. Well, depends on the game, I guess. All right, let's keep moving. We've got other questions and a follow-up. This next question is from Katie, one of those. Hey, Chaz, just wanted to make sure you and the crew were okay during the recent storm. What's it like living in a state that's constantly being bombarded by hurricanes? My hubby Dave says hi. We watch every Sunday. Anyway, sending our best from Michigan. Hope you guys are okay, and thanks for the pod. It's great for our commutes. Well, thank you, Katie. We're fine. So this is always a bit of an awkward conversation with anybody that isn't from here or hasn't spent a lot of time here. Hurricanes, much like alligators, are just kind of part of the deal. So for us specifically, we did fortunately fare well in the hurricane. You never know how these things are going to go. It kicked up a bit north, which I thought that it might do. And obviously best wishes to and thoughts to people that are on the coast that definitely were negatively terribly affected and output by the flooding. Storm surge is a huge deal, but for us, at least where we are specifically, we are far enough inland. We're not even, my house isn't even in an evacuation zone. Almost like EXE stopped working right there. My house isn't even in an evacuation zone. So usually if a storm hits, it's going to hit and it's going to slow down by the time it gets to us. So if a storm's going to hit the coast as like a 3, it's going to be a 1 or less probably by the time it gets to us. So the storm itself is actually not as big of a deal as the aftermath when it comes to the flooding and power. Power being without power for so long is terrible. That's the biggest thing, and we didn't even lose power, I don't think, thankfully. So we got lucky. It is a lot of just kind of hoping and wishing, but it isn't any different, I think, than the fact that gators are all over the place. They're all over the place. They're so invasive. I just saw these guys caught one the other day that was almost 1,000 pounds. It was like the second biggest one that's ever been caught in the state. What's the worst you dealt with inland is just wind and rain. And I will say, sometimes it can be bad when they sit on you. That's what happened to Houston I can't remember what year it was, within the last decade or so. And that's what happened with us with Matthew in, I think it was 2016, maybe 2017. But Matthew was a 4, a 3, or a 4, and it just came up and sat off the coast for days, and it just rained for days and days and days. Hurricanes spin off plenty of their own tornadoes without any warning. That's true, too. Tornadoes is a thing, I think, too, that people don't think about when they think hurricanes, because they're so focused on the hurricane and the storm itself. Those things create tornadoes for areas that it might not, it might kick a tornado off to shoot down south to Miami or something where it didn't even hit. So a lot of it is just kind of unpredictable, and just being able to adapt and knowing that for the most part, where we are, at least, the biggest problem is going to be being without power. So you want to have water, you want to have batteries, radio. Remember, you can charge your phone in your car. Earth is not something that should ever quake, and for the record, sliding is something land should never do, no doubt. And sinkholes, don't even get me started. That stuff terrifies me. But I think it's all relative, I feel like, a buddy of mine recently messaged me and was like, hey, are you guys okay? And I didn't even know what was going on. So that was how I found out about the hurricane, was him asking if I was all right. Because you just kind of get used to it. I'm sure that if I was in like California and there was an earthquake, I would freak out. And any kind of people that were native to the state or lived there would be like, what's your problem? So it's kind of like that with hurricanes for the most part. It's just like, yeah, we're just, we deal. We deal. Everybody's got their stuff. Some places get too cold. Some places get too hot. Some places get hurricanes all the time. But thank you, Katie. I'm glad that the show is helpful for the commute, because I know that those aren't fun. Spend lots of time driving. I don't like driving anywhere, even going to the store. So let's keep moving. The next question is from Clay. Clay asks, medium-time listener, first-time questioner. I joined a 3-5 group at my gaming store, nice, and our first session is in about 2 weeks, starting at level 6. Having never played 3-5 before, I'm looking for some advice. I want to make a dual-wielding damage dealer, specifically one that uses swords. What do you think the best base class for that build is? I appreciate any ideas. Well, thank you for the question, Clay. Oh, we haven't had this problem, I think, since early days. Something's been going on with my stuff. I wonder if the storm messed stuff up. Anyway, what I would recommend for the 3-5 base class is fighter, because you're going to get the feats that you need for the 2-weapon fighting. 2-weapon fighting is a major thing with taking minuses to your taking negatives to your attack rolls. So you wanna go down a 2-weapon fighting tree pretty quickly so that you can attack with full BAB, or at least with a minimal negative to your roll on the offhand attack. Also, as a fighter, you get extra attacks quicker. So I would definitely say to do that. I'm from Cali. We freak out by going into a skate stance. The fighter, I think, is the best for you in that. Because, yeah, like I said, the feats are going to give you what you need to get rid of the negatives for 2-weapon fighting using 2 weapons. And just being able to attack, because what's the point of having 2 weapons if you can't attack twice, you know? And I think that fighters are the only ones that get that attack, get that second attack in 3-5. Maybe barbarians get it. Barbarians probably get it, but I think that that's it. You could do rogue too. You definitely could do rogue for the sneak attack if you go finesse, if you go dex. And rogue, I think, is probably an easier transition into. If you're a skill monkey rogue, if you go rogue for it, do a skill monkey rogue, because that's going to be an easier transition for you into either duelist or swashbuckler as a prestige. I forget which one uses intelligence as the modifier for a lot of their abilities. But all that said, I'll put together a list of some stuff and send you an email with more, because I have gone more in depth with the answer as to what I'm giving on the show. So I'll send you a document that has a breakdown. It's much more in depth, but the short answer is fighter and or rogue. Maybe barbarian, but I don't know. If you're using swords, you can end up doing, I think, a lot more. Well, that's tough. 3-5, if you wield 2 weapons, 2 attacks, just your second is like -7 if you don't have any 2-weapon training. Yeah. So I think that standard, if you're using 2 weapons untrained without 2-weapon fighting, the negatives are crazy. It's like -8, -4. And then if you take 2-weapon fighting, it's still like -4 and -2. And then you have to take improved weapon fighting to, I think, make it -2, -2. And then there's one other thing that you can take to pretty much get you to base. So you're attacking without any negative to either of your attacks. Everyone gets multi-attack and BAB 6. Martial arts get there faster. I don't think that is that true? Does everybody get a second attack at level 5 in 3-5? Why am I remembering that incorrectly? Then what's the benefit of the fighter must get it? That fighter has to get it sooner, right? Having some buffer health issues. How about others? Yeah, I'm not sure what's going on. Maybe it is the blue moon. Having a blue moon, folks. Does that mean issues with the with the stream? Ambidexterity 2-weapon and improved 2-weapon. Yes. Oh, it's ambidexterity. Okay. Fighter gets action surge at 2nd level. And that's in 5e, right? I'm talking about 3-5. Light offhand weapon reduces a penalty 2. No melee gets 2 at... No. Every melee gets 2 at 5. Yes. Wow. Maybe that's why everyone loves 3-5. Well, there's way more reasons than that to love 3-5, but yeah, fighter and or rogue, maybe barbarian, but fighter's gonna probably get you to where you want to be quickest just because of the feats. So, all right. Well, thanks for the question, Clay. I hope we don't have to. I hope we don't keep having issues with the stream here. I don't think any of my settings have changed, but certainly after this, I'm going to do a run through all of my settings and make sure all of my drivers and everything is updated. And I don't know, I was actually having an issue when I was doing the podcast as a guest the other night, too. So we'll have to check on this stuff. But thank you for the question, Clay. Hope that gives you an answer. And as I said, I'll follow up with you with an email that has a more in-depth answer than that. So let's keep going. We have 2 more questions, 1 semi kind of question, hybrid question, and then a follow-up. So this next question is from Chris. And Chris asks, what is your green/beige/red flag as a player? I actually answered this really quickly. When I was going through this week's questions and I wrote it down and I was taking notes, it all just kind of poured out. So I'll just read what I said. My green flag is that I will sacrifice for the good of the party. I have no problem throwing my character into an active volcano if it means doing what the party needed to do. My beige flag, and I guess some could consider that a red flag, but I think it's a good thing. I'm down for the party. I'm riding for the cause. My beige flag is that I'm pretty just hack and slash in combat. I'm not very creative, so to speak, in what's going on in combat most of the time. Usually it's just kind of attack and do damage. So... And I play lots of fighters, so that's kind of beige. That's kind of beigey. That it's just like, oh, you're always a fighter. That's kind of, switch it up a bit. And then my red flag is that I tend to do things just for the bit, like a lot. So I get the party in trouble all the time. And sometimes it's just the nature of playing the character as aggressively genuinely as to sticking true to the character and what they are. But some of that is just that's, I think, the most fun stuff. I mentioned, I think, on last week's episode about in our party in the Baldur's Gate 3, towards the beginning of our adventure, one of our players broke his oath as a paladin, and he was discouraged, obviously, but I think that was really fun because it created kind of an organic thing. And so in that vein, being the type of, that wild card energy, Justin has that a lot. In fact, Justin's more of the wild card in our party in Baldur's Gate 3 than I am. But usually in my experience as a player in D&D, I've been the one that is, what's this circle? Let's walk into the middle of it. Or like, hey, let's knock on that door. Or let's just run in there and ask them for our friends back. Just crazy stuff that is super dangerous. It's a liability, but it can lead to really cool stories. In fact, some of the cooler stories that most of us have with D&D are things that went south and went wrong. A roll went wrong somewhere. Or stuff that you handled in totally the way that you wouldn't expect to. That's the best stuff. Been forever DM for 20 years. Flags are like, what and how much of it do I put up with or go with? I have a player who wants to run a 23 strength and 5 int half ogre. He's literally mentally handicapped. Can I do this without enabling a group that does nothing but hurl ableist slurs? Well, I mean, just don't have a group that hurls ableist slurs. I mean, that seems pretty easy. Just don't do that. But that is insane. I'm more concerned about the 23 strength than the 5 int. What are we doing here? Is this an epic level character? Love playing fighters, but they have some non-physical quality or attribute they're good at, such as being brave, being charismatic, being cunning. Yeah. Yeah, and I guess like with Tantor, Tantor was a ranger, but he played like a fighter. And you can do that. You can add RP flavor that is giving people characteristics that are beyond just them being as fighters, even if it's silly things. Because with Tantor, like he hates oranges, loves peach turnovers. Just the little stuff is real fun, like Studebaker being a cobbler. Love it when chaos breaks out. Anything that brings laughter. Yeah, no doubt. Most stories begin with the characters goofing around. Yeah, usually. Session, I mean, it's all chaos, right? But that's the idea. It's like a controlled chaos. It's chaos because chaos thrives within the community. I think I want to start bringing that back and talking about that on the Discord. Oh, hello. Thank you for joining. DM'd a Barbarian Forsaker Werebear that had a 42 strength. Yeah. It's just, how do you even run that? How do you give that person any kind of agency without, if you did it in like a buddy pair, like a Master Blaster thing, derailed the plan to Ethan needing a moment. Yeah, we do that a lot. What influences to do episodes on electricians, roofers, and landscapers? A lead into the Labor Day holiday. Oh, interesting. That I guess it is Labor Day. Well, the electrician thing, I'm actually surprised that we didn't do these kind of trade jobs sooner than we did, because it just seems obvious. But we just hadn't gotten to them, I guess. Timing. And yeah, I don't know. I was just thinking things that resonate with people. Those are my favorite kind of ones to make, or the ones that I can do a little research on and try and get specific in with the jokes, a little inside baseball on the profession, so that when people see it and they're like, oh yeah, just the stuff that you and your camp, you and your ilk, you and your people, so to speak, would be able to relate to. So I think that's the most fun stuff. I do want to do another teacher edition. I've got to figure out how to write that. It's Labor Day weekend. No wonder the grocery store was absolute chaos today. Yeah, come to think of it, I was out today too, and it was quite busy, and that certainly does explain it. 42 strength is above Elder Worm and God level. I don't know. I don't get how that would fit into a normal campaign. Yeah, for sure. It'd be like epic level stuff. An edition where they work at a carnival. Oh, yeah. We did do a circus, but we didn't do a carnival, and carnivals are quite different. And while we're at it, we could do a fair edition. Dwarf Cleric has an AC of 72. Whoa. What is hitting that guy? Not much, right? Okay. Well, those are my green, beige, and red flags. Let's keep grinding through. Got a question, a half question, and it's a question / notice, and then a follow-up. So this next one is from Marvin. This next question is from Marvin. And Marvin asks, hello there. My question involves RP. Recently, my party was in a tavern and learned of a nearby cave system containing untold riches and a map we might need. Maybe. At the end of the session, we voted in favor of going to the caves. It was majority rule, only myself and another member of the party voting against. The reason my PC vetoed the idea is that one of my ranger's character flaws is that he's claustrophobic due to his backstory of once being buried alive. Oh yeah, well, I mean, that'll make you claustrophobic. I don't want it to be a hurt on the party or the story, but I also want to stay true to my character. Am I being too, it's what my character would do about the whole thing? All advice is welcome. Thanks. Well, thank you for the question, Marvin. I don't think, based on what you've told me, you're being too. It's what your character would do about it. If it sounds like this guy has a mad problem with enclosed spaces, and so it seems like that would be his natural response in party if it was brought up to like, hey, let's go explore these, spooky caves. But let's get into it. Sorry, let me catch up on these things. Like putting doors randomly in open areas like fields and seeing if the players open them. If they do, I'll roll a list of preset destinations to see where the door leads to. That's really cool. Okay, so sorry, Marvin. Let's get back into it. I don't think that inherently by you voting against going, you're being too out of character. In fact, if I were your character, this is just how I would play it. I wouldn't even go in. I would try and come up with some sort of either whether you could do it with mind linking or some way to communicate while they're in there. Maybe a rope. Get rope. And then just kind of, first of all, why does the other player not want to go? Because I think that that's important too. Start there. Talk to the other player in character about why they don't want to go, and maybe the two of you can come up with a plan on how to either, because I do see someone in chat say have him overcome his fear, which is a very good point, either for you to go use this as a character development moment to have him overcome his fear by going into the caves. Although, if the DM knows you're going to do that, then that might not go well, depending on what their style is. Or make a plan with this other person that's essentially, okay, here's the deal. We're going to split the party. We're going to stay at the mouth of the cave or the cavern or whatever until you guys get back. And you could take a rope in there and we'll have the rope that we can connect to, and maybe you could set up some sort of a dimension door or teleport, although teleport's a pretty high level spell. Probably dimension door is a lower level spell than teleport. But meaning that if it's a situation where you have to be there, like if you're going to have to fight, maybe they can just get to where they need to inside and then just kind of blip you in there. Kind of like a blink you in. But again, you could make it an opportunity for you to overcome the story. I do think that, overcome your fear rather. I do think that a lot of this does hinges on what the other player's reason is, because if the other player's reason is like yours, where they're like afraid of it, then that makes a stronger case for you to together face your fear or together to avoid it. The reason for the other player not wanting to go could be totally unrelated, right? I don't know. Maybe they just want to like loot or like buy stuff in town or not do it. But I think that you can kind of use what their reason is to guide what your character does, and just make the decision and try to make the decision as the character. Would the character see this as an opportunity to overcome the fear, or would the character see this as like, I'm not going to be able to do this? And so what other options are there then? You got to figure that out. If you have to be there, you may as well have your character drink some liquid courage and go down with the RP. Like the trash compactor on the Death Star. Get blind finding and go into caves blindfolded. True. Although, I would imagine the idea of maneuvering your way through a cave system, depending on how it's set up, whether you were able to see or not, you could certainly feel how closed in you were. Cave walls close in slowly. Yeah, I was thinking that myself, Pirate. When I first got this question, I was like, oh man, if I was the DM, this could go so many different ways. You could play this out so many different ways. Because if he does decide, okay, I'm going to use this as an opportunity to overcome my fear, then you can to try and throw a wrench in that, do something like that where the walls close in, or just kind of throw them in the deep end of overcoming that fear then. So, the first corridor they walk down when they get into the cave starts closing, and then they overcome it. Backstory was him buried alive. I don't think I'm blindfolded up. Yeah, that's true. Go in and have the character roll saving throws to determine how incapacitated they get. That's true. And that's what I would do as the DM, right? If it was a situation where it's like, okay, you're telling me that your character's claustrophobic and so much so that they're voting against going and exploring these caverns, but because majority of the party rules and you're going, then what are you going to do about that? Are you going to stay outside? And if you do go inside, you're going to have to make fear rolls. You're going to have to roll, I would decide something that would be fair, and we would have that conversation. Talk to the DM. Did I already say that? Do that too. About how you're going to be approaching it so that the DM can plan accordingly. Right? If you're going to go sit out, if you're not going in and you're going to sit out there with the other party member, then the DM should know that so that they can prepare something for either for something to happen inside that requires you going in or for something to happen outside. But if you're going in, then that's what I would do is I would make you do fear rolls every so often. Every 3 rounds. Yeah, every 3 or 4 rounds you do a will save. And maybe you just become incapacitated with fear and can't move. And now you're in the caves. Yeah, it could go. You're going to have to make that call as to how you want to do it. All of that is to say, whether or not you go into the caves and like overcome the fear or you come up with a reason to stay out, I don't think that there's necessarily any wrong way to role play. Unless what you're doing is like blatantly negatively impacting other players' experiences. For the most part, this is what it is. Everybody's has their own character and rather player agency as to what they're doing, and those actions and behaviors affect the story. And so you just kind of have to adapt and deal. So ultimately, I think it's your decision. And no, I don't think you're being too much of a say, that's what my character would do. I think this is actually a good example of a time where saying that's what my character would do is valuable and valid. This is where too much backstory puts a wrench into the game. I disagree. Fort is 3.5 con save. Yes, 3.5. It's a fort save, not a con save. It's weird that 5e has more saves, technically, the way that it's set up. I mean, never mind. I don't know what that meant. That didn't make any sense. Oh, man, I'm tired. It's been a weird day. Been a weird week. The storm that ended up not really being that much of a storm for us, and I don't know. Weirdy. Maybe it's the blue moon. All right, so thank you for the question, Marvin. Hopefully that answered. The last question/notice that we have here, I didn't actually get a chance to confirm that this was okay to do, but I imagine that this was the intention. So if there's any issues with it, we can certainly address it, but I doubt seriously that there will be any problems with bringing this up. So I got this email, and I want to share it with everybody. Dungeon Master. Enclosed is a request to help our bard. We've been doing campaigns since we left high school in 2012. He's a huge lover of your man shorts and avidly listens to your podcast. I'm reaching out to see if you will help my friend. Well, a bard in need is a bard indeed. He's having a hip replacement in the upcoming months, and the procedure is going to cost him out of pocket. Right now, his wife's the only one working. He hasn't been able to find employment because of the issue he's having. I'm enclosing his GoFundMe that we started in hopes that our community will be able to assist him. Thank you so much from the Rambling Wizard, and I hopefully say this correctly, Salyar, Devonshire. Well, Salyar, I have indeed linked in the description of this YouTube video the GoFundMe for our bard that is in need. I'm very sorry to hear that. It's got to be awful. Yeah, it's, having to pay out of pocket for a procedure that's clearly necessary, and that's got to be tough. So whoever you are out there, bard, know that we are sending our best thoughts to you, and I've put this out there. Please, anybody out there that can donate, there's a link in the description of this YouTube video for the GoFundMe. Whatever you can give, I'm sure, is very appreciated. It's got to be a terrible position to be in. You know, you can't you can't get the money to fix the problem if you can't work because of the problem. So that's got to be tough. Sorry to hear that you're going through that, and wish you the best. Hopefully we can get some awareness out there and share that and send it around. See if we can get some people to help with that. Can you cast reduce on a player who's claustrophobic and then place them in a bag of holding? Oh, that's a great idea. What a great way to do that. Polymorph is 4th level, not a lot can cast it. Oh, I guess that's true. Well, reduce, yeah. What's enlarge reduce? That's like a level 2 spell in 3.5? Actually have no idea. It might be a level 5. I don't know anything about spells on their levels. Won't the character in the bag of holding suffocate? That's a good question. I don't know how that works. I don't think so. I would allow it. Maybe buy a polymorph scroll. That's true. Definitely go with scrolls. That's good advice for Baldur's Gate 3 too, by the way. Particularly if you're not a spellcaster. Oh man, I'm having so much fun with that game. Baldur's Gate 3, I'm a Dragonborn fighter. And I am going to respec when we level up next, because we're level 5 right now. When we level up to level 6, I'm going to respec starting with my first level in cleric and go war cleric and then do my 5 levels of fighter. Because I give up a feat, but man, the stuff that war clerics can do in that game, and I've heard that clerics aren't that popular. People aren't playing them very much. That seems very odd, right? Clerics are cool. I'd figured that people would like not play more of the supporter classes, like bard. Well, I guess bards are more popular than they certainly used to be. But still, I thought it would be like, oh, nobody plays druid. Of course, I guess you can wild shape with druid. Bag of Holding has a limited amount of air in it. Oh, well, that makes sense. They have enough air for their con mod. 3 minutes for a +3 modifier. Yes, that's true. That is how that works. I remember one time I got swallowed. I was a minotaur and I got swallowed by a kraken. And I had to keep making con saves to hold my breath. Everyone underrates clerics because pocket healer, when in reality they are powerhouses that can cover all bases. Yeah, no doubt, especially with the way that they're kind of set up with all of the different domains, because I don't know that people realize the real diversity of the cleric in terms of all of these little subclass domains that essentially serve as an archetype for a multi-class, if you ask me. It's basically just showing you like, hey, because as a fighter, I was looking into options for multi-classing on my next level. And I was just looking through like what everybody gets at level 1, just kind of seeing. And I was looking at the cleric domains and was like, whoa, so like a war cleric essentially is built to be a fighter multi-class. It's really crazy. I'm considering even maybe going more cleric levels than fighter even. Because sure, the feats are nice with fighter and the superiority dice, I guess, but I don't know. I might have to rethink my whole class. But that's the cool thing about having the old Withers guy in your camp, right? Because you could just like respec for 100 gold. I hope they add that wardrobe thing in too, where you could rotate the players. That'd be pretty cool. So we do have a follow-up that I'd like to do just before we get into chat and here wrap things up. Can't believe here we are again at like almost done. But this follow-up is from Julie. This is from an early episode. It was like, I think we were like 10 or 11 episodes in on this. But Julie says, follow up here. Back in February, I emailed in seeking advice on playing my first PC. Your main point, among other good ones, was to have fun. I'm happy to report I've done that, and I may even DM our next campaign. Whoa, don't do it. Thank you for the bardic inspiration. Ah, well, thank you. And that was from Julie. Thank you, Julie. I'm glad to hear that you've had fun with your first PC. Interesting to hear that you're really interested in DMing, but hey, don't let my negative Nancy attitude keep you from DMing if that's what you want to do. In fact, we need more DMs. Hey, are you a player? Are you a PC? Have you considered DMing? Do it. More DMs. I have an inflict wounds built in 5e that splashes 2 levels into Grave Cleric and 2 levels into Necromancer Wizard. The rest is Divine Soul Sork. It's insanely strong. Yeah, that sounds insanely strong. Wow. 3e to 5e is not a terribly difficult transition. No, it's not. I will say a Canadian GM. I think I need to be a player in 5e before you run it. You've been running a 3rd edition. Yeah, I would. Well, yeah, you probably do want to be a player. Just because there's, at the first time I played as a player in 5e, there were a lot of things that immediately came clear, like advantage and disadvantage versus like just straight up bonuses. I will say just across the board in my experience, if your experience is with 3e or 3.5 and you're getting into 5e for the first time, it's a lot more streamlined. The rules, the mechanics are not as dense. The array of classes, prestige classes, feats and skills and stuff, spells and stuff, it's not as vast because, again, they kind of streamlined it. So they just kind of took, like, you know, a fighter, like a cool duelist fighter that you would, as we were talking about earlier, that you would build with prestige classes like Swashbuckler and Duelist. They just worked that stuff into the base classes now, and 5e is subclasses. So I would say play it first because that can probably get you more familiar with the mechanics. And also, if you play first, you don't have to stress about world building in addition to learning the mechanics. So he's a one-trick pony, but he hits like a truck. That's Sarah energy. My sister's a first-time player, and she's currently writing up our next campaign. Nice. Yeah, and there is something to be said about people that DM. I want to say that Posey, our original Forever DM, his first time playing was as a DM. And that might be the case for Ethan, too, but I'm not totally sure on that. Next year's you'll hit 40 years as a GM. Whoa, congrats. Cheers. That's awesome. Yeah, we are in the midst of chat. Yeah, Pyra, we can talk about good things for the week. Let's talk about good things for the week. Well, it sounds that good things for a Canadian GM next year is going to be hitting 40 years as a GM, but hey, 39 is important. So, good things for the week for me. Well, the best thing for the week this week for me was that the hurricane was minimal. There was minimal damage to us. It was pretty much just wind and rain, and if I'm completely honest, I think I slept through most of it. I kind of woke up and was like, oh, it's kind of, seems like it just kept moving. So that's probably the best news of this week, as well as just things looking good on the dice front, on the, when it comes to I don't want to say too much about, like, I'm working on other projects that are good, that we can talk about more, hopefully soon. You just bought the Foundry VTT server. Oh, okay, cool. Oh man, I wonder if Ryan knows about that. My buddy Ryan. Or if tolerates me. I hear that. At our session yesterday, the players met the Man Shorts crew as ghosts. Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, tell us about that, Chris, please. I'm interested to hear that. We were all ghosts. Making an Essence 20 campaign. G.I. Joe, Power Rangers, and Transformers is the setting. Oh man, I don't know if I could decide between Transformer and Power Ranger. But if you think about it, if you get everybody in the party to be Power Rangers, then you kind of can do Transformers too with the Megazord. Finished painting the new side door and repainting the front door. Nice. Finished by a 1.5-year-long Dragonlance campaign last Saturday. Oh, that's cool. I've had to spend your 3-day weekend mostly cleaning to prep for an inspection, but the upside is hopefully won't be happy again for months or years. So I'm eager to get it over with. Yeah, it's good to get those things. It won't happen for, it won't happen for another months or years, so you get to get over with. Yeah, for sure. That's kind of annoying that you have to spend the 3-day weekend doing it. But hey, the good news and silver lining on that, as to your point, it won't happen for a while, but then also you've got an extra day. So meet in the middle and just make Voltron, yeah. Then you have Power Rangers and Transformers. That's true. I got to meet one of my neighbor's new puppy. Spent over an hour playing with him. Time well spent. Oh, yeah. Any time with a dog is good times. Dogs are so good. I saw this TikTok earlier of this like golden retriever diving into the couch for his ball. It's just so good. Meanwhile, cats are just galactic. I think that cats are interdimensional security cameras. There, I said it. I think I've said it before, but I'll say it again. I think that they're interdimensional security cameras. There's something going on. They're reporting. There's a reason that they were worshipped by the Egyptians. So the setting is the Joe's, Power Ranger, Transformers, and My Little Pony, but I'm not a pony fan. I was briefly into the world of the My Little Pony. I understand some of the appeal in terms of like the story, because it is like a nice story, and it's just like, I guess, like good-natured. I led the group to a cave in search of a powerful spell book. The trio argued so long in the cave entrance, you all died of malnourishment. Tasked the player to find it as the ghost trio continue to argue. Nice. I would not consider myself a full-on brony, but I see the appeal. It's just feel-good content. I love cats, but the older I get, the more I appreciate dogs and think cats are evil or just thoroughly selfish. Yeah, cats just don't care. I have met in my life really sweet cats. Not many, but I have. In fact, there's the guy that produced my first 2 albums has a cat that is just the sweetest cat I've ever seen. It's crazy. You go over there and he's just like, pet me, love me. It's crazy. It's night and day for what I'm used to with chocolate milk, because she's just like a miniature panther. That's all that is. The book will turn out to be an AD&D PhD. Cats are very sweet and well socialized, so long as you're not a field mouse. Yeah, I think that cats are just kind of weird in general. I mean, I like them, but having a daughter exposed me to more than I was expecting. My Little Pony and Barbie's Dream House were 2 of the true surprises. Yeah, and the Barbie movie was good. I've not seen Oppenheimer, but I'm not going to see that in the theaters. No thanks. 3 hours? I'll watch that over the course of a weekend at my house. Cats don't care because they don't need you and they know it. That's true. Yeah. Dogs are real just kind of goofy, and they definitely need you. And their sense of time is so different that, when you go, you're gone for so long. So I don't know if anybody, is the Barbie movie really good and not just overhyped? Yeah. I mean, I think it might be slightly overhyped, because I wasn't like moved. I wasn't like blown away, but it was a really good movie. I think it was a really good original script, and I think that it got its point across without being too obnoxious. I liked it. Plus, like, the set design was insane. It was really well made. People definitely brought it on that set. Tell that to my cat who's currently laying across my feet. He's a very needy boy. Oppenheimer was a bit of a slog, but pretty good. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I would definitely recommend the Barbie movie. I liked it. It was fun. It wasn't, it's not movie of the year, but in some regards, maybe. Certainly set design and original screenplay. And I thought Ryan Gosling was hilarious. I was actually kind of surprised at how much I enjoyed his performance, because I've never been like a huge Ryan Gosling fan. so to speak. It's never been. I've never been like, oh man, there's a new Ryan Gosling movie we got to go see. So, but yeah, he's got chops for sure. He's a and also can dance and stuff. Like he's one of those triple threat guys. So I was surprised. Do a recipe to the new D&D cookbook. We could. That could be a thing we could do. I wonder if Rigsby might be interested in doing that stuff. You know, he's the chef of the group. Gosling has continued to surprise me in everything I've seen him in. Yeah, no doubt. You know who else surprised me recently, and I've talked about it, I think, on this show, was Elizabeth Olsen. Because, not in the sense that I didn't think she was talented, it's just that I didn't really know. And then I saw her in that Love and Death show, and she was killer. See what I did there? Pun intended, but she did a really great, she had a great performance. Oh, and also we started watching the new Interview with the Vampire tonight. Just watched the first episode. And One Piece. Oh man, how did I not mention One Piece? Well, probably because I've only seen one episode. And I'm sure that people that are huge fans of the show have seen all of it and are current. So Elizabeth Olsen really impressed me in her performance in Love and Death. And I've heard she's great in other stuff, too, that I've not seen her in. But John C. Yeah. I don't know what you're talking about, Chris. I didn't see that at all. Why is Warforged looked down upon more in 5e? It was fun in 3rd. I just hear a lot of shade thrown at him now. I don't know. Maybe people think Warforged is OP in 5e. And honestly, that it could be just based on how everything has kind of shifted with streamlining in 5e. Because you know, there's just so much, a wealth of so much different choices and combinations in 3.5 that there's not too much that's overly broken in 3.5. Oh, hello, David. Thank you for joining. Glad you enjoy the work. Was hoping the One Piece live action would finally be the anime or video game adaptation. That isn't bad, but afraid it would be terrible. But really, it was in the middle. Just good. I like it so far. Yeah, that's good. I've only seen like an episode and like a little bit of the second one. I like it. I think it's good. It's not awful, which is more than I can say, by the way, for other anime adaptations by Netflix. So certainly more than I could say for stuff like Death Note and Full Metal and whatever that DBZ movie was, although that wasn't Netflix, but you know what I mean. A lot of these anime adaptations over the years into live action have not gone well. And even if this one is like okay, that's awesome. And, you know, if Oda's involved and he signs off on it, then that's good enough for me. I know, Chris, I was making a joke about not being able to see him. The Bleach adaptation made me cry, not in a good way. Oh. Yeah, you know, you're not the only person that said that. I've heard from a couple of people that they were disappointed with whatever Bleach has been doing recently. Which is weird, because wasn't there a period there earlier this year where they were doing some really cool stuff? And then I guess it's just kind of like not turned out very well. But that's all to say, I've really liked the One Piece adaptation, at least from what I've seen so far. And I hope they make more of it. I hope we get more of the story. I think I'm impressed with how they've told the story, the way they're doing it, where it's just kind of like hopping back and forth. A live action Nightmare Before Christmas? I don't know how I feel about that. I don't know. I don't know what the deal is with, I mean, I know what it is, right? Obviously you want to hit that same thing and make the money, but I don't know. It'd just be nice to see some new properties. You know what I mean? All right. So we're here at the end, folks. I can't believe we did it already. It's gone by so fast. Sorry for the bumps along the way. Don't know what those were about, but I'll double check my settings. Maybe it's just YouTube, or maybe it's just the blue moon. Who knows? I will be here next week. Same Bard time, same Bard channel, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the Man Shorts YouTube channel. Just a reminder before we jet out of here to send your questions and queries, concerns, complaints, criticisms, and all those other things to bardadvice@gmail.com. Get your merch at manshorts.com. And send any contributions that you want to help me with the music production. YAHZICK Yazik at PayPal, Cash App, or Venmo. I hope that everybody has a fantastic weekend and has a good week. Everybody stay safe. Enjoy yourselves. Enjoy the long weekend the best you can. And we will see you next time.